Welcome to TMZ Live and the trouble with the Epstein files. As America is now learning, as the world is learning, that the release of these files that has been so long delayed is going to be rife with some very big problems. And it started today with a letter that came out. There were 30,000 pages of documents that were released by the Department of Justice this morning. And one of those pages was a letter purportedly, allegedly written by Jeffrey Epstein to Larry Nassar, the disgraced pedophile, the former doctor for the Team USA Gymnastics, who was also convicted and in prison. This letter was purportedly written by Epstein in 2019, the same month that he died by suicide, August of 2019, to Larry Nassar in a different prison, and reference President Trump. The problem is that letter is fake, and we did not find that out until several hours after it was released. And the problem here is that under law, the law that is directing the Department of Justice to release all of the documents, they have to release everything. And what we're finding out is that some of the things they are releasing just aren't what they appear to be. So what the Department of Justice says is that the FBI confirmed the alleged letter from Epstein to Larry Nassar is fake. And the reason that they've determined that, the writing does not appear to match Jeffrey Epstein's. The letter was postmarked 3 days after Epstein's death, and it was postmarked out of Northern Virginia. Epstein was in jail in New York City, and also the return address did not list the jail where Epstein was held and did not include his inmate number, which would be required for any outgoing mail. All of these things pointed out, made it clear to the FBI that it was fake. Now, when the letter came out, the Department of Justice did say that some of these documents contain untrue and sensationalist claims made against President Trump that were submitted to the FBI right before the 2020 election. It just means, basically, we're putting everything out there, but we're not vouching for anything that you're seeing here. And so we literally have to take everything that comes out with a grain of salt, almost everything, certainly when they have to do with investigative notes or other, communications that the FBI or agents were having with tipsters. It really creates an issue for how we handle the Epstein files going forward. So joining us right now to talk about what is very clearly a very complicated process, someone who spent a lot of time working in the Southern District of New York as a prosecutor, Sarah Krisoff. Sarah, welcome to TMZ Live. Wow. In order to release these files, what exactly does the DOJ have to do? We've heard, obviously, they were supposed to all come out on Friday. There's been this delay, which they said was about redaction. But now you're having documents come out that they admit as they're releasing it, we don't know that any of this is actually factual. So take us through the process that you go through when you're releasing investigative files.
Right. I mean, this is a really challenging process. There's no question about that, right? Because when you're involved in an investigation, and here we know there were multiple investigations. There was an investigation in Florida. There was an investigation related to Epstein. There was an investigation related to Maxwell. And so all of those investigations, they're huge sort of swaths of information that the agents and the lawyers are collecting, in connection with those investigations. And so they are talking to witnesses. They are, subpoenaing documents. They are, receptive to tips. There's a whole host of information that they receive. Some of that is going to be credible, maybe, and some of it isn't going to be credible. And so sort of now the DOJ is going through the process of releasing that information without, commentary on it, right? So we're not having an agent involved in the case going through the documents with us and saying, hey, this was a credible witness, this was an incredible witness, we didn't believe this tip, this was an anonymous tip that wasn't verified. Like, we don't have that advantage. We are just seeing the basic documents and are having to make our own calls about those documents.
Right. And while they did, of course, put out a disclaimer this morning, it wasn't about any specific document. It just said that some of this is unfounded and false, and that, they were certainly warning that some of this may turn out to be untrue. But I guess my question is, Sarah, why, if they're taking what Pam Bondi and the Department of Justice have said to this point, is the reason they didn't meet the deadline Friday is because they had to redact so many documents, and they're trying to protect victims, and you get that. But shouldn't part of the process, now that we know that they are releasing documents, investigative documents, where it may not be factual, shouldn't that be part of the process? Why aren't they taking time, as the FBI did here, to look over this letter before it's released? So even if they're going to release it, because I know by law they have to release everything, can't you at the same exact time say, we are putting this out because we have to, but the FBI has looked at this, instead of there being this 8-hour window between the release of it and then the FBI's results?
Yeah, I mean, there certainly is some scrambling going on at the DOJ. There's no question about that. I mean, they had this deadline. They didn't meet the deadline. It is an enormous job they are doing. They have the resources to do it, but they're on their heels here, catching up with what they need to do. So, I mean, they certainly, if there are documents such as this that the FBI has already determined are fakes or not. This is according to them, not penned by Epstein. Then it would certainly be helpful if the document was released with that information. But that's a difficult. That adds a whole nother layer of difficulty to this process, right? I mean, they'd have to weigh in on every witness statement, every tip, and then tell the public, hey, we think this one's credible, we think this isn't credible. And frankly, the people who are able to do that don't even work at the FBI or the Department of Justice anymore.
Right. I just keep thinking that this has been there's so many conspiracy theories around the Epstein case, around Ghislaine Maxwell's case already, that this is just going to add to that, right? For the people who believe that there's been this massive cover-up and that there are all sorts of conspiracies. Now, when you have documents that are going to be released, that finally these files are being released, but every time a file comes out, there has to be a vetting process that comes out, that happens in real time after the document comes out. I feel like this is just so much more fodder for conspiracy theorists.
Yeah, I mean, it does certainly provide some more fodder, right? And then there are, the DOJ is really policing itself here, right? They are looking at the documents. They are deciding which ones that fall into which bucket, which ones are going to be disclosed, which ones fall into the exceptions. And then they have to provide Congress with some information about redactions and the documents that are held back. But ultimately, that call about whether or not to provide a document is still the DOJ's to make. They are their own enforcer here, and so there are going to be doubters. Really, no matter what documents we see, there are going to be people who think that the DOJ sort of didn't do enough, or there may be people who think that the DOJ provided too much, right? There are going to be people on both sides of this argument.
Right. And as you're saying that, I realize that they have to release every document because they know, Pam Bondi knows, that at some point she's going to be called up onto the Hill and she's going to have to answer to all of this. So it's got to all come out. And unfortunately, what we've seen over the last 2 days is that means we're going to get some things being released that just turn out to not be truthful. So this is going to be a very rocky road for however long it takes for all these files to come out. Sarah, I really appreciate your time and insight into what happens at DOJ when they have to go through all this.
Thanks for having me.
All right. Thanks, Sarah. So, there was another example of this, of documents that are released from the Epstein files that, and to this point, we have not heard a report from the FBI or the Department of Justice as to the veracity of this. But again, it is a shocking headline. FBI notes that where someone is alleging that Trump and Epstein had raped her.
That's right. And this is incredibly inflammatory to your point. The date of it is very important. We'll put that out at the outset. This is from a FBI intake memo, meaning they listen to a hotline that they set up. A caller comes in and they detail notes about what that caller said.
Right.
They didn't solicit the interview or anything like that. This is an intake.
And that call came in October of 2020.
October 27th, 2020, which is on the eve of the election. This is when everyone was having their weapons pointed at Donald Trump and
right.
to malign him potentially. This note says that the caller talked about a time meeting Trump and their demeanor went cold, and she stated, the name is redacted, but it appears to be a female, "He raped me." When the person responded to her, said, "What?" That person responded, quote, "Donald J. Trump had raped her along with Jeffrey Epstein," and noted that some girl with a funny name took me into a fancy hotel or building. That's how it happened. The funny name appears to relate to something earlier in the notes about Ghislaine Maxwell being an odd name.
Right. So again, they have to release, this is in the FBI file, so they're releasing it, but
even on its face, this is just an allegation. This is a tipster who called in and related some notes to an FBI agent.
Right.
So at a core, you don't even need a disclaimer. This is even less than a complaint. Nothing has been filed other than someone telling something to an agent over the phone and the agent typing it up.
Right. And when, by the way, after that was released, we contacted DOJ. They pointed us to their earlier statement, which said that a lot of these documents are unfounded and false allegations. So,
and the timing is conspicuous. To be fair, it is on the eve of an election, and the nature of the allegations are something we had never heard before.
Absolutely. Now, one other thing, a document that came out, and this one is a little different from those. Like, those are investigative notes, as Sarah Krisoff just told you. Like, when you look at investigative notes, you're getting everything under the sun, and you don't know.
Not what's been distilled down into a case against somebody.
Right. There was one, a 2020 email, January of 2020. I believe it was January 8th, 2020. And this was an email sent by a assistant U.S. attorney in the Southern District of New York. The name of the U.S. attorney has been redacted, but they note to a superior, I'm guessing, we have found out that Donald Trump traveled on Epstein's private jet many more times than previously has been reported. He is listed as a passenger on at least 8 flights between 1993 and 1996. Now, that's not an accusation. It's not an accusation of a crime, but it is them saying, it almost feels like covering their ass to let their superior know, hey, if this comes out, you should know it, and maybe you want to give the president, because again, Donald Trump was the sitting president at that point, do you want to give him a heads up that this information is here if it comes out? So,
and you're right, this is different than an intake on a hotline. This is a prosecutor. It's got a little bit more credibility behind it than just listening to someone calling the hotline.
But again, sorting through all of this is going to be a nightmare as this continues.
Coming up.
Well, there is one collab you will not be seeing in Hollywood, and that is Steven Spielberg and Ben Affleck, because there is a bitter, bitter grudge on Spielberg's part.
Ben came in fully dressed, and my son pushed Ben into the pool, and Ben got really mad at him.
Be right back.
Well, there is one collab you will not be seeing in Hollywood, and that is Steven Spielberg and Ben Affleck, because there is a bitter, bitter grudge on Spielberg's part. And we found out about this because Mike Binder was on Stephen Baldwin's podcast, One Bad Movie. And he revealed this story about a movie that he was making where Steven Spielberg was going to be producing it, and Ben Affleck was the guy he hired for the lead role. The movie is called Man About Town. Well, it didn't go the way Mike hoped, because once he went to Spielberg, who was producing it, and revealed that Affleck was the person he wanted, well, he found out that Spielberg is not a fan of Ben Affleck. Has nothing to do with movies, or very little to do with movies. Listen to this story. I had no idea that Steven Spielberg held on to grudges like this.
Made this movie called Man About Town for Lionsgate. I had written it for Steven Spielberg. And then Ben Affleck comes to my editing room and watches Upside of Anger. Says, I want to do your next movie. I said, well, I'm doing this movie, that Man About Town at DreamWorks. He said, I know, I want to do it. I haven't even read the script yet, but I want to do it. I said, okay. I call Steven. Steven says no. So Steven says, Mike, let me tell you something. My son was a little boy, was playing in the pool, and he got out of the pool, and Ben came in fully dressed, and my son pushed Ben into the pool. And Ben got really mad at him. And he came out of the pool, and he picked him up, and he threw him back into the pool and made my son cry. Ben calls me up. He goes, did Steven Spielberg tell you I threw his kid in the water? Is that what happened? Is that why I'm not on your movie?
He would do it just like that.
So I call Steven back. I go, listen, I really think I want to use Ben. He's the right guy. He goes, okay, use Ben. Next morning, I get a call from my agent. DreamWorks is dropping the picture.
Spielberg just said, yeah, go ahead, you can have Affleck, that's fine, but we're not going to produce it. And they didn't. And Mike Binder made the movie with Ben Affleck.
And the unfortunate thing is that, you
The
know,
movie
once you lose Spielberg, you kind of inevitably...
And you lose all the budget.
You lose everything. you kind of lose everything, which is what the end of that story is. But I will say, look, I love Spielberg to death. I think he's the greatest director of all time. One of my idols for sure. But I think he missed an opportunity here with this Ben Affleck story, because the way Mike Binder talks about it, it seems like Spielberg knew that his son pushed Ben Affleck into the pool with all of his clothes on.
Yeah, he absolutely did.
So then this is an opportunity.
I don't understand why Spielberg is holding a grudge against Affleck.
That's what I mean.
His kid pushed Ben.
This is an opportunity for Spielberg to go up to his son and be like, look, if you want to be able to dish it, you got to be able to take it. And if you're going to get thrown into the pool because you push someone in with all their clothes on, that's just what's going to happen. You got to bite the bullet, right? I feel like that's a universal rule.
Although maybe Spielberg really knew something wasn't right about the script. As it turns out, the movie did not really do well.
That's true.
Hey everyone, it is Matt Rain from Washington, D.C. Look, you know, holidays are a time, as you guys are talking about, for grudges, for reliving those grudges with one another. But, you know, I think for Ben Affleck and Steven Spielberg, they need to hold like a joint Festivus or something and air all of these grievances out because, you know, look, Steven Spielberg, Ben Affleck are legends of Hollywood, and I hope they collaborate on a project here in the future, maybe just not involving a pool. That would be my advice.
That would have to be the inside joke, right? The movie opens like Ben Affleck is pitching it to Spielberg. All right, we open in a pool. No. So the LA County Medical Examiner has filed the death certificates for Rob Reiner and Michelle Singer Reiner, and they the documents, we published this morning, broke this on the website. It does reveal a little bit about some of the circumstances around their death. It gives you some specifics about what happened in their home when they were found. The biggest thing, and this was a little bit odd. So it says that Rob was found at 3:45, and we knew that it was sometime Sunday afternoon, but it says specifically 3:45. And then for Michelle, they're separate documents, obviously. Michelle's says 3:46. And what's interesting is that even though they were found so close together in time, and all the information we have at this point is that it's their daughter who found them.
Correct.
But on the documents, they list Michelle as widowed.
Yes.
Right? That Rob's spouse survived him, which is an odd thing that they listed it that way because.
Yeah, because they also didn't determine, approximate time of when they actually died. This is just when they were discovered by police, and obviously, Romy was the one we're told that discovered them. So it kind of does go to the theory that maybe the daughter saw him first, but not the wife, not her mother.
Not her mother, right.
So maybe that is what is telegraphing in these documents.
Because perhaps it's based on the 911 call.
Correct.
That was made, that they did that. Because they have not, at least that we know, determined the exact time of death.
Right, and we're still trying to figure out, and just determine when they had passed away. It's still kind of murky, but Yeah, I mean, look, they also list that they died from multiple sharp force injuries, and that's the cause of death.
Right.
Obviously, this is with a knife, which we knew. And they were cremated at Mount Sinai here in Los Angeles at the mortuary here. So, hopefully the family can start having a little bit of closure and a little bit of, being able to
for
move
them,
on.
the closure is not going to come until they're going to have to go through this trial.
And Nick has been charged with the murder of his parents.
The one thing we know, so they were found at 3:45 in the afternoon. What we know about Nick's movements were that early that morning he was walking around the neighborhood. We know when he checked into the hotel in Santa Monica.
Yep.
We don't know at what point
he checked out.
He checked out, so we don't know exactly when he was at the house and allegedly committed the murders. But
all signs just from our investigation just shows that this happened maybe in the very early time, on Sunday morning. Because remember, Charles, we were told that there was blood found in his hotel room on the blankets and in the shower, and he had even apparently covered up the windows with blankets to try to have some privacy. Right. It's unclear too if police have found the murder weapon.
We know
that they were looking for it. Yep.
But we don't know what they found. So,
right.
It's unfortunately going to be quite a bit of time before this family has the closure that you're referring to.
Hi, Brooke from Scottsdale, Arizona. As somebody who not only watches but studies crime, true crime, stabbing has got to be one of the most horrific ways to go out of this world. And the worst part is the parents were most likely trying to protect themselves rather than cause harm back to their son who was taking their lives. So it's just unimaginable.
Coming up.
So if you know anyone in your life who is Gen Z, or maybe you are Gen Z, you've certainly heard being a content creator is a viable life choice. The trend that I have noticed is a lot of people posting the fact that they tried content creating and it just didn't work out.
At some point I got pretty burnt out, and so I ended up taking a 9-to-5 job.
Be right back.
TMZ's got every freaking thing. Big celebs, big stories, big events.
Phoebe Rexa was looking hot on vacation.
Look at the water, too.
Did you just say, look at the water? I mean, I'll be honest, that is what I was looking at. So if you know anyone in your life who is Gen Z, or maybe you are Gen Z, you've certainly heard this trend of that most people in Gen Z, I believe the latest number was 57%, feel that being a content creator is a viable life choice. And I say viable as in you can pay your bills by doing this. And the trend that I have noticed is a lot of people posting the fact that they tried content creating and it just didn't work out. And they're sharing online their stories about how they tried it, and then they realized that, they weren't making enough to sustain their bills, to pay their bills, and to feed themselves. And so they've had to go back to 9-to-5 jobs. I don't know if that's because that content creating just is too difficult a job to really do that well, or if maybe they're just choosing the wrong sort of content to create. But our guest, who's joining us now, Sarah Gav, is in this same boat. She was a ballerina, and then she decided she was going to be content creator, and now she's back to a 9-to-5. I'm not sure how she feels about that or what her experience was, but we're going to find out now. Sarah Gav, welcome to TMZ Live.
Hi there. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. I really am excited to talk to you about this because I hear this. I've heard it from some people in my family who are Gen Z, and they feel this way. And they're still trying to figure out how to create their content that's going to make them money. But tell us about your experience, what you were doing, and how it worked out.
Yeah, so I am Gen Z. I'm 25, so I fit into this demographic pretty well. Basically, I left my job as a professional ballerina during the pandemic when everything kind of shut down. And I started posting on social media. I never really anticipated it to be a career. I didn't really think that was a thing. Little did I know, it kind of turned out to be more than I expected, and I was able to start a business. So it worked out pretty well, but just at some point I got pretty burnt out, and so I ended up taking a 9-to-5 job, and that's where I am now.
You said you felt burnt out by it. Why was that? Is there a pressure to post a certain amount every day. I'm sure you got and every single post you are looking at you're looking at your engagement. And it's got to feel, I would imagine, like sort of life or death, right? Like you post something that you think is going to do well, and then nobody's engaged with it, and you got to start thinking, well, hell, that's not going to pay any bills.
That's pretty much exactly how it goes, right? You have to kind of show up 24/7. So I started to notice myself, filming things more than I was enjoying things or something along those lines. And at some point I started to think like, is this really what I want to do full time forever? And then beyond that as well, the money that you make with content creation, if that's kind of your only thing, it can be really varying from month to month. So you don't really have any level of stability. I was able to build a business with it, so I was able to have a little bit more stability than the average content creator, but yeah, it can be a little tricky.
Tell me, what was the business that you were able to start with it?
I started a social media agency, so I was managing Instagram pages and YouTube channels for different businesses and brands, and that's kind of still what I do. Well, it is still what I do to this day as my 9-to-5 job. So I don't regret content creation because it definitely led me to where I am now.
And it seems like you've decided that the coaching is more steady work, I guess, right? And at least you have a more steady income from it, and that's why you've decided to go that route?
Exactly. So that was kind of my idea, was like, how can I build something beyond just posting that, is maybe a little bit more stable? And so with my 9-to-5 job, because I do work a corporate job now, I basically work with a company and I run their social media and I make their YouTube videos. So I still have that element of content creation, but in a stable way instead of like my paycheck varying every month.
Is that the biggest challenge for, if there are people whose accounts you're managing and they I'm sure will ask you what they can expect. What is the biggest pitfall? Is it the fact that it is just, you have no idea from month to month what you're going to be making?
I think it depends, because for a lot of content creators, like that is very difficult. But I think one of the things that's a little more challenging, especially if you're a beginner, is the consistency aspect of it. It can be really hard, I think more challenging than most people think, to like show yourself on a camera every single day. I'm sure you know that. And
Yes.
so, yeah, I think that's kind of just the thing that people don't really think about. And when people start, they think it's going to be so easy. And then, they realize that they're not getting paid for it and they're spending a ton of time doing it. So that can be a little challenging for sure.
And what about the fact that you're also just judged, right? I mean, and I think that's part of the anxiety that people must have in, okay, I'm going to show everybody whatever I'm doing, whatever aspect of my life every single day, but they're also going to judge you. And there's no way you can, it is your job. So you're going to be looking at the comments. It's not like you can just put it up and be like, I'm not going to look at the comments. And the internet is a pretty brutal place.
Definitely. Being any sort of like public figure or creator or anything like that lends itself to negative comments. Like it happens, and that can be really challenging. It can affect certain things like, brand deals and whether a brand wants to work with you, things like that. It wasn't necessarily that for me as to why I left, but that definitely is an element. And it's kind of like you have to shut your eyes to it and just realize that it's part of, I guess, the job.
Yeah. So overall, 9-to-5 job or content creator? Let's assume that content creating was paying the bills for you. Which would you prefer?
I don't know. I think at this point in my life, I'm really happy with a 9-to-5 job just because of the stability aspect. Like that's just where I am right now. I guess it doesn't mean that I'm closed off to it in the future, like to do something that's more freelance or business owner. But I guess where I'm at right now, like I like being able to like end my day at 5 p.m. and like call it a day.
Right. Sarah, thank you so much for joining us. Wish you the best in all your jobs, your 9-to-5, your social media managing, and your content creating.
Thank you so much. I appreciate being here.
All right. Thanks.
Coming up.
Nicki Minaj has someone coming to her defense after her appearance at the Turning Point USA conference. We got Amber Rose out here in LA, and not surprisingly, she is defending her.
I just don't get the logic behind why people are upset.
Be right back.
So Nicki Minaj has someone coming to her defense after her appearance in Arizona over the weekend at the Turning Point USA conference. There are some people, some barbs and non-barbs, who are just questioning why Nicki is suddenly getting really political and, by her own words, expressing full admiration for President Trump, for Vice President Vance, and she and Erica Kirk appear to be besties, by Erica's words and Nicki's. So we got Amber Rose out here in LA, and remember, Amber, who spoke at the RNC, had this to say about Nicki's choice. Not surprisingly, she is defending her, but she's also questioning why people are coming after Nicki and still wondering why they came after her so hard.
What do you make of everything? Her coming out with Erica Kirk yesterday.
I think she did a great job, an amazing job.
I saw you put on Instagram, the Queen has spoken.
Yes,
so
that's right.
You don't think that she should be getting as much backlash as she is?
No, she shouldn't. We live in a free country. She has a right to her own political opinion, just like everyone else does. What's wrong with talking to Erica? That's what I mean. Like, I just don't get the logic behind why people are upset.
A lot of people feel like because of her fan base being like largely, LGBTQ, that
she didn't say anything wrong. She didn't say anything about the LGBTQ plus community at all. Why do people think anybody over there is homophobic? I'm not homophobic. My assistant has been with me for 11 years. He's black and gay. I have a bunch of trans friends. So does Nicki. Yeah. I don't know why people twist our words or think because we endorse Trump that we just hate gay people and trans people. It's just not true.
Yeah, I mean, look, I hear what she's saying about, this is a free country. And if you're only going after just because she's supporting someone that you don't, that's a little ridiculous. The part about the LGBTQ community is interesting because Nicki did say repeatedly, boys should be boys, boys should be boys, boys should be boys. And I think that's the part that people in the LGBTQ community feel was a slight against them, that it was transphobic.
Well, it's not that subtle. And I mean, I get what Amber Rose is trying to say, but unfortunately for her, we live in a culture where who you associate with matters. So she might, Nicki Minaj or Amber, they might not have to directly say anything that's anti-LGBT for people to still get mad if they're standing next to someone who's making policies that are heavily affecting the community.
It's also it never comes off well when you say, I have friends or I have employees who are part of whatever group. It always just sounds a little, you're walking a line there.
Yeah.
Hey, so my name is Jada. I am based here in Atlanta, Georgia. I think this story is interesting because Amber Rose has always been open about her political views, and Nicki is no stranger to controversy. And so when we're looking at Amber's response, it doesn't surprise me at all, if I'm being honest. And Nicki's engagement in this conversation doesn't surprise me if you've been following her recent discourse on Twitter, which I have. What's more interesting to me is actually the response of the Barbs. So there's 3 different movements happening. There's one movement that people are completely stepping away from Nicki Minaj. There's a second movement where people are saying, okay, I'm going to separate the artist from the music. And we've heard that before, right? And then we have a third group that's a little bit more radical. They are denouncing the Democratic Party and stepping away. And that pretty much signals to us they would rather step away from the Democratic Party than to step away from being a Barb. And I think the entire discourse around situation pretty much just shows us the basis of democracy, right? We have to allow differing opinions to exist. We have to have this discourse. And that's just the basis of our community. And so I think it'll be interesting to see what's going to come of this because, like I said, if you've been following Nicki, I think she's just getting started. Nicki's going to do what Nicki has always done. And I think the story here is actually how people are going to react.
Yeah, it seems like you're going to see Nicki getting more involved. Remember, next year is an election year, so will she actually find candidates that she is going to go out and very vocally support? There is an R&B artist who is getting a huge boost and being introduced to the world thanks to President Obama and his rap. This has become his thing that he does at the end of the year. Shares with his followers all of his favorite songs of the year, his favorite movies, books, and he put out on his list, he had about 30 songs. And he went pretty deep on some of these because one of the artists he featured there is an R&B singer named Ro, and her song Stay. Gotta be honest, I had never heard the song before, but this is what happens when he puts these lists out. People go and listen to it. Well, guess what? We got Ro out here in LA, and we asked her what this has done for her, what it was like to find out that she was on the list. This is what she had to say.
First of all, no words can compare to the feeling, but we work really, really hard to be seen and share our gifts with the world. And so to reach ears up that high is just like the highest honor. Thank you, Obama.
First of all, how did this happen? Like, are you listening to Stay? Like, let me find out Obama has amazing R&B taste. So yeah, that was a real great Christmas gift.
How was your mom's reaction?
My mom was like screaming, and she was just like, I knew it. I told y'all this is my baby's year. You know, the mom thing.
I was gonna say, that sounds like a mom.
Super, yeah, she's like my #1 supporter, so.
Yeah.
What a really cool moment for her and her career. And I gotta say, like I said, he went so deep on this. We talked to Eric, our music expert here. He and I do a music podcast, Get to the Hook, check it out. But Eric hadn't heard of Roe either. But I listened to the song, I like it.
It almost makes me think he's been influenced by his daughters. I would not be surprised if his daughters were the ones that turned him onto this music. The rest of his list is pretty diverse as well, which I'm feeling like maybe he was influenced by his daughters. There's Blackpink on there, Rosalia is on there.
Hold on a second, his daughters don't get all the credit.
I think they get a good majority of the credit.
The man could listen to music, you know, that's not of his generation necessarily. It happens.
Yeah, okay,
Barely.
sure. But you know what? There's one thing on here that I thought was kind of interesting. So on his list, he has both Drake and Kendrick Lamar.
He did it. It's interesting. He did that last year also.
You think he's trying to bring the peace?
I don't think he's trying to get them back together, but I think he just doesn't want to pick favorites.
Yeah.
Because you never know in politics.
True.
Coming up.
The Stranger Things finale, it is almost here, and Matt Duffer, who produced, wrote, created, directed Stranger Things, you gotta imagine he's feeling some pressure, right? We got Matt Duffer out at LAX and asked him how he's feeling about it.
Be right back.
All right, it is almost here. Not Christmas. I mean, yes, that is almost here also. But I'm talking about the Stranger Things finale, the big finale coming up next week. 3 new episodes that are dropping on Christmas Day. And Matt Duffer, one half of the brothers who produced, wrote, created, directed Stranger Things, all 5 seasons, you got to imagine he's feeling some pressure, right? Because when you have a show as popular as Stranger Things, and then you're getting up to the finale, everyone wants so many things to happen, and you're never going to satisfy everybody. So how do you actually write something that you're going to feel satisfied about? We got Matt Duffer out at LAX and asked him how he's feeling about it. Obviously, they've had it in the can. It's been done. But now that the show's aired, the season has started, there's a lot of expectation from the fans. How do you deal with that? This is what he had to say leading up to next week's big finale.
Did you feel an extra pressure because it's such a beloved show and, you know, endings are important?
Same thing. I mean, yeah.
You did?
The short answer.
Ronnie, can I get some?
Yes, but we're really happy with
You delivered on it? People are going to be stoked?
We'll find out. I hope so. We're stoked.
Have you got plans on New Year's Eve to celebrate it somehow?
I'm gonna go to watch it in the theater.
Oh, sweet surprise
I'm not
appearance.
gonna say which theater.
Okay.
I'll be in Los Angeles though.
As a Stranger Things fan, we're all focused on this finale. I'm definitely gonna see it in theaters. I'm fingers crossed that Matt Duffer will be there and surprising my theater.
So you're going on New Year's Eve, you're going to go
Definitely.
New Year's Eve night, or are you just going to go like a matinee?
Well, honestly, might have
You
to
go.
be the day after. I feel like going out on New Year's and then celebrating the first day of the new year, hungover in a theater.
The problem now with these shows, because it's so popular and somewhat, how are you going to avoid the spoiler if you don't go the day that it comes out?
I'm pretty good at avoiding spoilers. You just gotta stay off your phone.
Oh, that's easy to do.
So this is Coco Michelle calling from Atlanta, and I am really excited about the Stranger Things finale. I'm just hoping that it's not one of those things where we're following for years, and then we do get that disappointing ending. So fans like myself are going to be definitely tuning in, going to the movie theaters. Maybe like she said, after the day after, but
I will say, if you don't see it on New Year's Eve, you know that somebody's going to make then you better stay home on New Year's Eve. Because if you go out, if you watch anything, someone is going to make a reference to it. So that's the chance you're taking.
Coming up.
Well, nothing says it's the holidays like the Nutcracker Ballet, and you can't have a ballet without a skating legend, right? Yes, you can. This makes almost no sense. The San Diego Symphony was putting on the Nutcracker as one does at this time of year, and features Tony Hawk.
Be right back.
Well, nothing says it's the holidays like the Nutcracker Ballet, and you can't have a ballet without a skating legend, right? Yes, you can. This makes almost no sense, except that it happened down in San Diego. The San Diego Symphony was putting on the Nutcracker, as one does at this time of year, and it features Tony Hawk, of all people. How does this work? How do you have, well, here's how you work them in together. I mean, look, everyone clearly came expecting this. It's on the poster, and when you sit down and look at the stage, suddenly they got a, half pipe there.
The thing is, Charles, I mean, everyone has seen the Nutcracker, but I think we can all agree that one thing that was missing from that theatrical performance was always Tony Hawk. And so now we finally get that. He said,
I love that he's in costume too, like,
he said his daughter actually pressured him to do it, and he was like, I don't really know what I'm gonna do here, but they were able to put up a quarter pipe, and so they could do some moves and things like that. He was actually with a young prodigy who was with him, 15 years old. Caitlin West is her name.
Caitlin West, yeah.
And yeah, so she's going to be a name that people are going to be hearing about for a while. So shout out to the people of San Diego. They got a really cool performance, a unique one, you can definitely say.
Yeah, like this is
Nutcracker.
This is a Nutcracker ballet that, you're not going to fall asleep during.
Yeah.
Hi, I'm Dana from New Jersey. I think this is so sweet. What a great core memory he's making for his family. I guess we're just saying yes to everything in 2025, but this is so cute.
It really is cool for his family, but also for everyone in San Diego who got to see it. What else do you guys want to talk about?
Hi, so my name is Jay. I'm from Atlanta, Georgia. So when it comes to the whole allegations that are being brought against Donald Trump right now with Epstein, I feel as though there are several connections between Donald Trump and Epstein that's kind of hard to ignore. And what concerns me the most is the fact that we've become so desensitized to these types of issues as a society that it kind of just makes these things go underexplored.
Okay, one more.
Hi, my name is Dominique, and I'm from Los Angeles, and I'm going to be talking about Rob and Michelle Reiner. It's deeply disheartening that Rob and Michelle lost their lives at the hands of their son that they were so desperately trying to help, especially during the holiday season. My heart aches for their daughter, as I can only imagine the immense pain that she's going through. And this is undoubtedly a long journey of healing and mourning for her and for everyone who loved them.
Yeah, it is going to be a very obviously painful season, a holiday season for them and beyond. We will see. I mean, there's going to be so much more that comes out in this coming year.
Coming up.
Well, who doesn't love a good holiday family photo around the country? I'm sure lots of people trying to do that right now. And hopefully you are having more luck than Kim Kardashian did.
Be right back.
Well, who doesn't love a good holiday family photo around the country? I'm sure lots of people trying to do that right now. And hopefully you are having more luck than Kim Kardashian did, because as you can see, that's the best photo that she got there with 3 kids in. But North, all you got was like her leg as she's running out of frame. Saint, yeah, he eventually sat, but that's not a smile that you want. Totally disinterested. At least Chicago and Sam were there right next to Mom. This is, I guess, a relatable problem. The part that's not relatable is that Mom is a incredibly successful billionaire, and that part most of us cannot relate to. So whatever your plans are, I hope you're having a great holiday season, and we will see you tomorrow.